There's a quiet kind of affection that doesn't arrive with noise. It grows slowly, shaped by the passing of years, by stories lived and lessons carried beneath the skin. Some people find themselves drawn to women over 40 not through impulse, but through a deeper recognition, an unspoken understanding of resilience, self-knowledge, and grace. It is not fascination with age, but with the way experience softens a voice and strengthens a presence. In this space, attraction becomes something calmer, wiser, almost reverent, and those who feel it often discover something essential about themselves. There's a moment, often quiet and unforced, when attraction shifts from the surface to something deeper. It happens in the presence of a woman who carries 40 years or more of living within her, years shaped by triumphs, disappointments, reinventions, and the simple accumulation of ordinary days. People who find themselves drawn to women over 40 often recognize this shift before they can explain it. They notice how her presence feels less like an interruption and more like an atmosphere. Calm, grounded, a kind of steadiness that doesn't ask to be noticed yet becomes impossible to ignore. The recognition begins softly. It is not about age in the numerical sense, but about the emotional weight behind it. There's a texture to someone who has lived enough life to understand that not everything is worth rushing toward and not every silence needs to be filled. Those who are drawn to her often sense this. They feel the comfort of maturity, the reassurance of a voice shaped by experience, the way she sits with her thoughts rather than running from them. Something in this steadiness reflects a desire within them, the longing to be understood without performing, to be seen without having to explain themselves. Attraction in this form is less about spark and more about recognition. It feels like stepping into a room already warmed by a fire that's been burning for years. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just a quiet light that invites honesty. People who admire women over 40 often carry a sensitivity to emotional presence. They notice the way she talks about the past without bitterness or urgency, the ease with which she protects her boundaries, the subtle confidence that comes from surviving her own storms. They notice the way her laughter is shaped by memory, how her eyes hold both softness and resilience. This pull is not always conscious. Sometimes it emerges as a sense of familiarity, as if an internal compass is pointing towards someone who represents a deeper way of being. For some it feels like relief from the pressure to impress, to prove, or to play a part that never suited them. For others, it is the quiet magnetism of someone who no longer chases meaning but carries it within her. In this early recognition, something subtle unfolds. They begin to understand that attraction can be shaped not just by desire, but by the need for emotional truth. And in the presence of a woman who has lived enough to embody it, that truth becomes impossible to turn away from. Attraction rarely begins in the present moment alone. Beneath every preference, every pull toward a particular kind of presence, there are roots. Quiet, psychological threads extending backward into memory. For many who feel drawn to women over 40, the origins of this attraction are not tied to age itself, but to the emotional landscape formed long before adulthood. Something in their past attunes them to maturity, steadiness, and emotional depth, shaping the kinds of connections they gravitate toward later in life. Often it begins with early experiences of safety or the lack of it. A childhood shaped by chaos may create an instinctive pull toward someone who carries calm. A home where emotions felt unpredictable can make emotional consistency feel like warmth. For others, a nurturing presence encountered early in life, someone who listened, someone who didn't rush them, someone who made them feel seen, becomes the quiet blueprint for attraction. As years pass, that blueprint doesn't disappear. It simply evolves into a preference for emotional steadiness rather than superficial intensity. These roots can also form in subtler ways. Some people grow up carrying responsibilities earlier than they should have. They learn to be self-reliant, to mature before their time, to navigate emotional terrain that others their age never had to understand. When they encounter a woman over 40, someone whose maturity feels natural rather than forced, it resonates with the parts of them that have always felt older than their years. It feels like meeting an equal, not in age, but in depth. Others may have grown up in environments where emotional expression was discouraged. In adulthood, the grounded openness of a mature woman can feel like a doorway into a version of closeness they never received but quietly longed for. She communicates with clarity. She recognizes emotional nuance. She knows how to listen without judgment and speak without pretense. These qualities often echo unmet needs, creating a sense of familiarity that feels both soothing and awakening. And then there are those shaped by past relationships that demanded too much performance and too little presence. They learned what it feels like to be misunderstood, to carry the weight of someone else's insecurities, to navigate immaturity disguised as affection. When they finally encounter a steadier, wiser energy, something inside them understands immediately. Not out of longing for age, but longing for emotional substance. These roots, often hidden, shape more than attraction. They shape recognition. The pull toward a woman over 40 becomes a mirror, reflecting the quiet needs and early experiences that formed the emotional architecture within them. It reveals that sometimes what draws a person forward is really the echo of what shaped them long before they knew why it mattered. Every attraction tells a story about the inner world of the one who feels it. When someone is drawn to women over 40, the pull often reflects more than admiration. It reveals the psychological patterns, emotional needs, and quiet truth shaping their perception of connection. This attraction becomes a mirror, not only showing who they are, but what they value, what they seek, and what they have learned about love through the difficult art of living. Psychology offers a gentle explanation. With maturity often comes emotional regulation, the ability to respond rather than react, to hold space for another person without becoming overwhelmed. People drawn to older women tend to value this stability deeply. Their nervous systems recognize the comfort of steadiness. Their inner world settles in the presence of someone who has learned how to navigate conflict without collapsing into it. What they find appealing is not age, but the emotional intelligence that often accompanies it. Attachment theory also finds its place in this landscape. Individuals with anxious histories often feel soothed by someone who communicates clearly, sets boundaries honestly, and doesn't leave affection tangled in uncertainty. Meanwhile, those with avoidant tendencies may discover that the grounded presence of a mature woman allows them to open slowly, without fear of being swallowed by expectations. Her independence creates space rather than demand, allowing closeness to unfold naturally instead of being forced. Yet even as this attraction feels calming, it can also stir inner conflict. Some wrestle with the fear of being misunderstood or judged for their preference. Others question whether they are seeking comfort rather than connection, reassurance rather than mutuality. But when they look closely, they often find that what draws them is not a place to hide, but a place to be honest. Honest about their emotional pace, their depth, and their longing for a connection that feels real rather than performative. A turning point arrives quietly, the moment they understand that this attraction is not a deviation, but a reflection of their emotional evolution. It shows that they value presence over perfection, depth over novelty, substance over spectacle. It reveals that they are no longer seeking intensity for its own sake, but meaning that can withstand time. And in this understanding, something softens. They begin to see that the women they admire embody qualities they themselves aspire to grow into. Clarity, acceptance, resilience, compassion. The attraction becomes less about longing and more about recognition, a gentle affirmation that the heart gravitates toward what helps it become whole. In this realization, the story settles into its final shape, an emotional truth that doesn't need to be defended, only understood.